What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more house. Maybe sort of hard house. I think it's between what I would call straightaway house and hard house. Now, it's a Klubbheads remix, and I did a reaction to the Klubbheads Kickin' Hard a while back, and that one to me is a master class of old style hard house. And this one is, in some ways, a little similar. It has a groovy, heavy bass line, although not quite what I would call the typical Klubbheads bass line. But yeah, it's a bit more atmospheric, it's a bit more, perhaps cerebral is the wrong word, but it's certainly more otherworldly than a lot of Clubheads tracks that I am familiar with, which are much more, fist in the air, get your feet stomping on the dance floor type of hard house. Nevertheless, this is called an old school mix. It's the Clubheads old school mix or remix of Jonesey's Independance, like Independence but with dance at the end. And I don't know anything about Jonesey beyond this release, so I can't say much. I will just say that I bought this record for the Clubheads remix because I had already become familiar with them, including through tracks like Kickin' Hard. But yeah, it's an anomalous record in my collection. I don't have too much house. I do have a lot of hard house, but even that tends to be the faster, like, Nu-NRG-style hard house, the late 90s turn of the millennium, like BK on the Blue Nucleus and some other like Tidy Tracks records. So even in my collection of hard house, this is a bit of an outlier. I do have some other house that I have mixed it with before, but yeah, it's not a record that shows up in a lot of my sets because mainly I mix techno, trance, and hardcore as opposed to house. In any case, I do think it's a great tune, so even if it was always going to be an outlier when I bought it at Vinyl Fetish off of Vermont many years ago, I had to snap it up. There were a number of records like that where I bought it knowing that it probably wouldn't be in too many DJ Shnootz sets, but I just liked the track enough that I wanted to get it, so I would put this in that category. So with no further ado, on Massive Drive Recordings, this is a remix of Jonesey's Independance from the Clubheads, and it's called the Clubheads Old School Mix. Make sure I have the right side here. Yes. It gets louder, I know that. subtle ride cymbal. Now these bassline hits. Anecdote coming after the reaction. So yeah, again, I feel like within the Klubbheads' larger catalog of original tracks and remixes, it's a bit of an outlier, just because, again, a lot of their remixes have, or tracks have this more, like, I don't even know the right word for it, party-style hard house bass line. So yeah, again, it's definitely old school, and I think it's a well-named remix, but yeah, it's interesting to me having a few other Klubbheads tracks and remixes. This one just has a bit of a different flavor. I do think it is still probably best described as hard house, even though I think you could mix it in a more like funk house or so on set. Like I think it, could fit with a lot of more straight away house. But yeah, there's like three elements that I think make this one for me. First is that sort of layered slash echoed and quasi tribal vocal that it just has this slightly tribal sound, although it also just sounds like someone sort of making that sound in a studio with a bit of echo effect and so on. But yeah, that tribal style vocal with the echo. Then of course there's that bass line, which is great when it's rolling over and over, but I also like it in that breakdown when it's doing like every other and it's like building up the sense of anticipation, and then right before the drop it goes into like that full rollover with the snare build and then drop. So I very much love the groovy old school bass line, and then there's that melody that comes in, that sort of wicked funky melody with a bit of an edge to it right in the main part of the track. It doesn't stick around that long. It comes in the second half of that big breakdown, and then it's there for the next like 2 measures at most, and then it fades away and it just goes back to that rolling hard house beat, or bass line rather. So yeah, it's a smaller part of the tune, but I think it makes it. I think that's the big drop. And the anecdote I was going to say, I'm trying to remember the name of the mix. I could probably look it up pretty quickly. And to be fair, I don't actually know if it's on my YouTube. If it's not, I'll endeavor to put it up there. So it was an old mixtape that I made many years ago. What is it called? I think it's called Bangin', which, you know, bangin' with only one G and then I-N apostrophe. Yeah, it was a hard house / house mix I did at a house party. You know, back in the early 2000s, I would sometimes take my turntable setup to friends' houses, and I would do like a live set, like often, you know, techno or trance or indeed house. Every once in a while, one time in particular, I would bring like some of my 80s vinyl, so it'd be like Depeche Mode and, you know, Soft Cell and so on, and I'd do like an old school like 80s mix. But I remember doing one of those mixes, and it was like a hard house set, and I brought my old 4-track recorder. I made a tape of it, and then it was a tape that I played in my car, and some people were fond of it, so I made other copies of it and, you know, gave it to some people. Anyway, at that party, I remember this tune really getting a response. You know, there's people like talking, hanging out. It's like a, you know, house party. And then I remember when that track played, like people came in and they were like grooving in the living room and so on. So it has a fond association with my own sort of idiosyncratic history. But that aside, I do feel like that drop in particular is the kind of drop that would like crush a house room at like a, you know, underground like rave party. I feel like that's the type of drop that would really get people's fists pumping, even if I would say other Klubbheads tunes are a bit more party style, fist pumping, foot stamping. Nevertheless, yeah, it's like those 3 ingredients that I think make the track. There's some other elements there. I like that little like almost in the background ride cymbal that you hear at a couple points. It's less prominent. Like there's a lot of acid techno tunes where the ride cymbal comes in. It's loud, it's double time, it's, you know, you can't not hear it, it's very prominent. Here it was much more like supporting and in the background, but I do think it's a good element as well. The kick drum, always nice in Klubbheads tunes, this one no exception. Tempo wise, it feels a bit slow for me, but that's because most of the genres I mix tend to be a bit faster than this. And hearing it here in this setting, it sounds like it's the right tempo, meaning like in that bangin' mix and in other mixes I might use this in, I'd probably pitch it up a bit. It probably would be a bit faster, but in this context, I feel like there's a plane like taking off outside my apartment. But yes, in hearing it here as an independent piece rather than one tune in a larger set, it feels more or less like the right tempo for it. And yeah, ultimately, again, it's anomalous. It's not one that you'll hear too often in any of my DJ sets, but it's a record I'm very happy to own. Shout out to the Klubbheads, shout out to Massive Drive. Let me know what you think of this, and I will see you next time. Peace.